In this lesson, we'll be spacing out objects using perspective. In our previous lesson, we were able to take a look at how we can draw using three-point perspective, and now we need to figure out how we can space out objects just using a vanishing point. And so for our drawing right now, we actually have a two-point perspective drawing, and so we do have this object right here. And it'd be great if I could duplicate this along this trajectory, but I want to make sure it's accurate. I don't want to just have a guesswork of like where I think the next object should be. And so for our first object, let's draw one that is right next to, or actually touching, this next object. So this would be almost like glass bricks or something like that. And so what we can do is we need to figure out the center point of this object. So let's create a new layer, and we'll just call this the center point. And this will just help us figure out where we need to draw an axis here. And so let's go ahead, and we have our line tool, and we'll just have a color like blue, something a little different than what's going on here. And we already know our trajectory lines here for our two vanishing points. So let's go ahead and let's draw a line from each corner to the opposite corner, the one that is diagonally from it. And so when we do that, then that tells us the center point of this object, or at least for this face. And then what we'll need to do is we'll need to figure out this axis that runs along up to this vanishing point. So what we'll do is we'll actually make another layer, and let's just call this our center trajectory. And we can create another color here, maybe something like pink. And we're going to drag straight from this vanishing point and make sure that it intersects with this center line, or this the center of this object, just like that. All right, so now we know where the center point is. So we can go ahead and use our the center point layer to start creating some lines here. So let's zoom in just a little bit, but I do want to create another color just so that we can keep it all straight. Maybe this like seafoam color. And I want to draw a line here from this corner, and you see where this axis, this trajectory goes right through this sidewall. So if I just follow this line, making sure I keep that intersected right there, so where it intersects here with this trajectory right here, then that tells me where I need to start drawing lines. Very cool. So I could do the same for over here, but all I really need to do is start to draw upwards, and that will tell me where those lines are. So what I can do is I'm going to create another layer, and this will be my object 2. And I can go ahead and swap over to black. And so now I know I can just go straight up from this point and touch that trajectory. And so now I already have one of my lines drawn. And I can also draw this face over here, just like that. And this one over here, just like that. Now, how would I know where to start drawing this backside? Well, I could actually take and pull this line all the way across. And so maybe I want to go ahead and use that center point color. So I'd actually take this corner and just bring it back to that other vanishing point, just like that. And so now I know I can go to my object 2, swap over to black. I can zoom in just a little here, and I can just draw that line straight back just like that, and just follow that trajectory. And then I can just finish this out just like that. Awesome. So really I only had to do that once because I knew that I could just bring that line up right where it intersects, or I can just hold shift and draw a line that is straight up and down. But in case you were using three-point perspective, then you'd still follow these principles, but you would just use that three-point perspective. And so you'd need to use follow along your zenith up above. So now we know exactly where the next object is. Awesome. So again, let's go ahead, and this time I'm going to, we already have our center trajectory, but I need to know where the center is for this object. And so let's go ahead, and if I turn off my center point, it's starting to get a little confusing. We're going to create another layer, and this will be our center 2. And so this time we want to space out an object that just a half a mark over. And so we know if we wanted to, we could have spaced out completely. And so if we want to, or one extra space here. So if we want to just space it over a half, how would we do that? Let's go ahead, and I'm going to swap these out here. So I want to make sure I know where that center point is. And so really it's right here, right? So what we can do is we'll just go ahead and hit Shift and bring that straight up. So we know that now this is the center point of this object. And so this would go straight up and down. And so instead of starting over from this corner, if I start from the center and go through that center line and hit right there, then that tells me that this is exactly half of a space over. So now I could come over and create a new layer called Object 3. Then we can come over here and just grab black, and now that we have the Object 3 layer, we can just draw straight up. I'm holding Shift as I draw this up. And then remember how we were able to draw straight back just using that trajectory? Well, we can do the same thing here. So let's maybe go over to our center 2. That's what we're using. I'll even swap out those colors so we don't get mixed up here. And I'm just going to just drag that straight back. And the same with this one over here. But we are going to need to figure out exactly where we need to draw our second line over here. So we'll actually need to do a couple things. So what we can do is we can start right here, and this will tell us the center point, and then we'll just need to come back straight through that center point. So we'll go ahead and we'll just draw this line. It'll come up right through here. So that tells us where our center point is, and so we can go straight down from there. And then that tells us where our center point is there. And then we can come straight through here. And so once we intersect, just like that, then that tells us where our line needs to be. So I'm just going to bring that straight up, just like that, and then bring this back down to our trajectory. And so just like that, we're able to create the rest of our box. Now it's getting a little bit confusing here. And so just kind of follow along as I just kind of fill in the rest here. So I'm going to go back to Object 3. And so we're going to go ahead and draw out that face. So this will help us a lot. So draw that line, come straight down, and then follow along the bottom. So now we have our face, and then we can draw this line right back here. We can go ahead and draw along the top as well and finish that top part out. Draw that back line, and then connect our back line to our face, and then we can draw along the back trajectory just like that, and then connect those lines, and then go ahead and connect these lines. Awesome. So if I now hide my center 2 and back up a little bit, so now we have that same object. So this is basically the same object as the first object, but it is now spaced one space out, or a half of a space away from the next object. So you could follow that same method, and if you wanted to space them out, either a whole space would be similar to this object, or even a half a space, kind of following the same method we did there, where we're just kind of like dividing up our object into pieces here. and just kind of figuring out how we are able to space those out. So that is a good way to space out your objects using perspective. And in our next lesson, we're going to start working with just some simple everyday objects and how we can draw them with perspective.